It's Bora Fleischman, your lift manager here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and what's going on with this series we're doing on this series of maps put together by the scholar Dr. Chaim Beinart. It really focuses a great deal in other works on Spain and what happened in Spain. It's really because a whole half of the Jewish people that survived then come from Spain. Spain was a tremendously developed country with the Weltanschauung, with a hashkafa which was different than the Ashkenaz hashkafas. And so to me it's fascinating to be trying to understand a little bit what happened here or what's going on. But unfortunately it's not a pretty picture. It's a horrible picture if you had to live through those times and the times immediately afterwards. So here we have this picture, and I can kind of go around a little bit of Spain. The last Jewish stronghold, which we heard in the last, was at the very bottom of Spain, in Granada. So at that time, this is the last place that Muslims lived, the last place that Jews could run to. But you see that it's down at the bottom. And all of this, the blue that we have here, out of Aragon, all was one kingdom. And finally, in the year 1491, Granada fell, which we heard that last year. Now, looking at the legend in this, I hope you could see it. Let me move some things around here. If you look at the map, and we'll get back to it again, all these little places with a Jewish star are town with Jewish settlements, places where Jews lived. And if you look around, and all of these various different kingdoms, which were now united, had Jews in them. And those that didn't, there are these circles here on the map, like, let's see, here's one here. Can you see it? One there. Those are places which he says are towns with converso residents. Now, I found over here on this map, just say, for example, this place called Huete, which I said that, somebody I knew who's Sephardi, also came from Spanish people. They knew people in their community with the last name of Gueta, because I was sporting a different name very similar to that. It's a little family name kicking around. So Gueta is now today called Huete. They changed the name. In 1391, there was a pogrom there, and everybody that was Jewish was forced to convert. Zero. And that's what happened in all of these places, these towns, which have little circles. And as you look at the map, and we'll look at it a little bit again, you see that there's lots of the Jews are scattered in every little part of Spain, until finally the Catholic Church takes over everything. Now, what we're going to do now is let's look at the rest of it. There are places, if we get a chance to look at the map a little bit more, let me try to just say very sensitive. The video stops. It just stops if I move this around too much. There's a place here on this map which says it has a cross, or I think it's supposed to be an arrow, but I'm not sure. In the year 1473, say for example, you have them over here too, 1449, this is in Medellin. He said 1449, 1468, 1464, 67, and 74. These stand for massacres. That's what happened at that time in this place called Medellin, which is really next to Ciudad Real, and maybe it's actually that's where it took place. Apparently it was a large Jewish congregation, a congregation of Jews there, and they were all forcibly converted. And then a massacre also took place. Maybe the massacre first, second. It's hard to say, but they took place many, many different places. Remember the jobs that Jews had? Tax collector is not really a popular job. The same job we had in Eastern Europe to survive in these places. Now, let's come over here and let's start looking at some of the notes that he has. Here we have the number 1, and he's talking. He's pointing straight to Barcelona, pronounced Barcelona, because Fernando had a lisp. Everybody started copying his list in certain areas. That is, in the northern areas, especially in Catalonia, and it spread all throughout Spain. The Jewish community not renewed. That is in Barcelona. They were not allowed to be Jews there anymore. not renewed after the persecutions of 1391, which we said in another time. Now let's move to a different place on the map. Let's look over here to this area. Here you see Oviedo, which has a Jewish star next to it. In the year 1390, which is 1 year before the massacres took place, he said this person, the rabbi of Burgos, I'm not sure where Burgos is, I'm looking for it. Here's Burgos. Oh, he has a line going to it. Here's Burgos. So he says, Solomon Alevi, rabbi of Burgos, converts, adopts the name of Pablo de Santa Maria. Now this is really very difficult for someone from an Ashkenaz background to try to swallow this. And if you're Sephardic and you're listening to this, it's a little bit hard to hear. I mean, it just, how do you digest these facts? But they're facts. This happens to this rabbi here. Now let me find number 3. I keep losing him. Here's number 3. He says number 3, and he's pointing once again at Catalonia, here in that area, near Tortosa. He says, Jerónimo de Santa Fe, formerly Joshua, which the name in his is Yeshua Alorki, doctor of Alcañiz, influenced by Pablo de Santa Maria, and he also converts. Okay, great man. Here's another one. In the year 1413 and 1414, and he's pointing here at Tortosa. Apparently Tortosa must either be or was a very important place. The anti-pope, I'm not getting into pope business and all the fights between the popes. The Benedict XIII, on advice of Jerónimo de Santa Fe, who was a converted Jew, rabbi, convenes religious disputation with 12 Aragonese rabbis in this place called Tortosa. We read about that a little bit in the last year. So let's go to number 5. Let's look around and find number 5. Where are you, number 5? Here he is, up at the top. You're very much at the top of where this note is, and he's pointing to a place called Soria or Gomara, I don't know which, on the Duero River. This is in the northern part of Spain. Abraham ben Venice, who's a rab de la Corte in Castilla. He was the rab of the court. In this place, he says, convenes Jewish representatives and scholars to revive the Jewish schools and courts. Now, what I think about, the only contrast that I think about in today between the possibility of these rabbis converting to Catholicism, I'm sure it didn't take place overnight. We have now in Judaism something called Reform Judaism, which is a way of remaking Judaism into something else. So looking for number 6 as we are talking. So we have reform. Reform, it really has very little to do with actual Torah Judaism, the Judaism of our fathers. They took a different path. And many Jews, because you don't have to go more than once or twice a year to the synagogue, they affiliate with that. But it is a very ultra-liberal, if not Marxist, orientation to it. And it won't last, but that's something that draws Jews into it. Just like there has to be an opening for these rabbis. It's just hard to hear how they went into Catholicism. Now, I'm still looking for number 6. Here's number 5, 2, 1, 7, 6. Here's 6. Oh, he moves to Portugal. This pogrom against the city's Jews in 1449 in Lisboa and Lisbon. Number 7. I saw 7, 7, 7, 7. Where are you, 7? Keep looking around, but we'll find it. Here is 7. This is taking place in a place called, looks like Makeda. Here you have a substantial Jewish population by the star and a circle around it, which were there many, many conversos. It looks more like it's pointing to not Makeda, which may be a suburb, but Toledo, which we know is a famous place in Castilla. Riots against conversos. Mid-15th century. Controversy over acceptance of conversos into Christian society. Nobody wanted the Jews. Now, if you talk to people who come from Spain, and it's possible, that is Cuban. I spent a long time living in Miami. I know a lot of Cuban people. And all of them are very positive about the Jews. It's very interesting. They're our allies of ours. They love us. Many of them used to be Jewish, and they know it. But then again, they don't know it. They know nothing about Judaism, and in their world. Just like you see like this controversy of acceptance of conversos into Christian society. That you have to make a living, and you have to live in peace in the place where you're living, and you're a converso. You need to hide as much as you possibly can any connection that you have with real Jews. That's a situation that exists in Spain, exists in Cuba now, it exists all over Latin America. People have connection to Jews. They love what the Jews are doing in Israel. They would like to, but they don't do anything, because the culture has stained them in such a way that they have to hide any relationship that they have, except in certain ways. They like Golda Meir, or they maybe like some different aspects that they see. But they're very positive. I've seen this many, many times. So those are the riots that took place because they don't want the conversos in the community. Now let's find number 8 on this map. And he says like this. In the year 1474, now he's pointed to this place called Almagro. Riots in towns and environments forced resident conversos to flee to Palma after inflicting casualties on attackers in self-defense. So they fought back. So when they could, I guess they did. Number 9. In the year 1476, conversos appealed to Fernando and Isabella, requesting permission to settle over here in Gibraltar. We mentioned this in the shir yesterday, with promises to defend the town and pay taxes. Crown rejects requests, fearing invasion by Muslims of North Africa. Jews caught in the middle, trying to survive. Now, let's see if there's, after number 9, is there any 10? I don't see it. That's that for this. Now, let's go on to another subject that we discussed, the Kingdom of Aragon at the time of Alfonso. Now, Aragon is this. And here we have at the bottom is Valencia, and the top are 2 places. One is called Barcelona, and the other one is called Gerona. These 3 places are, I guess, special in that kingdom. And so we see that all of the different, this is the world that existed at that time. And it had to do with the uniting of Aragon with the kingdom of Castile, and ultimately taking the kingdom of Granada. So this is the kingdom of Aragon they want to talk about, and let's move on to the next map. The next map is it refers to the conquest of the city and the province called Granada. This was at 1st January 1492. Let's see what we have here. Let's look at some of the places that we could see. This is Castilla, Madrid, right there, Segovia, different names that you may have heard. All of this area is the central part of the Spanish Iberian Peninsula. So it was able to join itself through conquest and pressure to Andalusia, to Aragon, which is on the Barcelona, like that, and finally conquered Granada. So let's look over here. Let's get an idea of number 1. Let's find over number 1. Here we are pointing at, I guess, a massacre. I'm not sure whether the escape of Jews southward. Fernando and Isabella request permission from Pope to establish Inquisition Tribunal. In the year 1478, the permission was granted in 1480, and he says Miguel de Morillo and Juan de San Martin were the first inquisitors. A bunch of really nice guys. January 1481 begins functioning. And what are they doing? They are arresting people who are suspected of reverting back to Judaism, Judaic ways. There are informers. They torture the people into confession, and then they're burnt at the stake. The idea here is to quell any thought of ever identifying anyone outside with Jews is punished in this unbelievable way. And we see it all over the Catholic world. Number 2, Pope Sixtus IV approves the establishment of an Inquisition tribunal when Catholic monarchs undertake to conquer Granada. That was in the year 1478. So this went through legal processes to start the courts of the Inquisition. Number 3, pointing over here to this area, I don't know if it's Aleojos or Alaejos and Zamora. He says, heavy war tax placed on Jewish communities collected annually to a tax map, according to a tax map. And they're going to have a little picture of it down below. We'll see it in a sec. Number 4, in 1483, with the expulsion of Andalusian Jews, this whole section of Cordoba, Sevilla, which is famous name, Jaén, Ubeda, Jews were kicked out. All of them had to leave. Where'd they go? Number 5, after capture of Malaga, this is pointing right over here, Malaga, which is the port city of Granada. He says, the Jews of the city held prisoners of war. There was a ransom for them. Think about hostages now that were so much in the news now that Hamas has, and others would like to have, because this is a business. The Jews were forced to pay a ransom of 20 million maravedis. I don't know how much money that is to be able to understand, but 20 million sounds a lot. Demanded for their release. I don't know if they paid it, what they had to do. Now imagine that this is where your life is, your grandparents, your great-great-great-parents and grandparents, and going way, way back, maybe 500-800 years, have been living here and working here amongst this population. And now you're faced with expulsion and tremendous ransom demands. Dangerous, dangerous time. Number 6, Granada. Here we are. The last Muslim stronghold in Europe falls to the Christians. Some of the Muslims leave for North Africa. 2 January 1492, Catholic monarchs enter the city. So this gives you an idea of what's going on there. Now here we have just a list. I think we could see this, get this right a little bit down further. The annual taxes paid in 1474 by Jews of Castile and war tax paid in 1491 for the conquest of Granada. So, for example, in this place called Aleojos, he says that 3,770, whatever that amount was, I guess maravedis, that's what they, maravedis, maraveda, or maravedis, 3,770. Look at the difference. In 1474, it's 5,000. For the war, it's 45,000. 1,000, 1,520. Okay, you're not Marlboro. Maybe nobody was left. 1,000 to 53, 4,500 to 76,000 in Almasan. These are all the taxes that were levied against the Jewish community in this gold quantity, which is called a maravedi. At any rate, I think that's all I have here. This is Baruch Fleischman. You're listening to the Shir 2 here on the, what did he call it? He called it the Jews of Spain on the eve of the expulsion. What happened in the 14th century in Spain? This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kola.